list of the campus-wide leadership series for this year. We ask you to seriously fill out the campus-wide leadership series. As you know, and I'm sure you're all well aware, we have very tight financial times. And this is the 10th year of the campus-wide leadership series. At this point, we are seriously considering not doing it anymore. And so we'd really like you to fill out the evaluation explaining why you come to these. I know they're great lunches. I like the lunches too. And I hate to start on a negative note, but we really need some idea of why you find it valuable in terms of your everyday activities, in terms of leadership that you do, in terms of management that you do in the hospital, on the university side, wherever it is. It's really important for us this time to justify why we're doing this, because everybody's cutting back. And as you know, it's sponsored by people on the university side, the three schools, School of Health Professions, School of Nursing, School of Medicine, Graduate Studies. The hospital contributes, HR contributes to this program, so we like the idea that it brings people together from very different components of our medical center, but we need to know why and why this is important to you. So please fill that out conscientiously. And then, let's see, this is also the 6th year that Marty McLaughlin has organized and, I guess, run this series. So I'd like to have just a little bit of applause for her. You're not going to take a bow? No. No bow? All right. And then I'm supposed to get out of the way and let Marty do the introductions. So I hope you enjoy the session today, and please fill out your evaluations. Thanks.
You can't hear me. You can hear me? Okay. All right. Well, I'm really excited to be able to interview Mary Carol Garrity today. On the back of your cover page is a little bit of a background on her for you, so I don't want to really repeat a lot of that. I know Dr. Klein was going to say something about the other lady that's famous from Atchison, and he didn't, but you're from the town of Amelia Earhart.
Yes.
Right? Yes. I know from having visited the store in Atchison in the early 90s and watching it grow and evolve and getting excited when she opened the store here, how much her business has grown and how she has expanded it with many of the things that she's done. I would like to point out before I really begin the interview that some of you may have wondered, and I'm sure there's others on campus that may have wondered, why we crossed an industry into interior design and how you can relate to somebody from that industry when you're in this one. It's because we all have career choices. We all have to figure out what path we're going to take and if we're going to veer off of that path and go down a different one, and what's involved in those decisions. We all have to kind of figure out what's out there. What is the niche we can fill in research or in medicine, our specialties or whatever, just as she's had to do with the interior design business that she's developed. We have to figure out funding. If we need education, are our parents paying for it? Are we going to go on for graduate studies? Are we going to come up with our own funding? How are we going to justify that? How are we going to fund our research projects with NIH or any other grants? Well, Mary Carol has to do the same thing with expanding businesses. I mean, she may be the owner, but as a business expands, you still have to consider many different factors. Staying up to date. In this field, in the medical world, you have to stay up to date with the latest research, with the latest medical practices, the latest equipment, the state-of-the-art facilities, and so on. She has to stay up to date with the coming trends. She kind of has to predict ahead what's coming. So we do have things that we can share with you today through this interview process of things that you might be able to learn from in terms of how she's grown a business in a competitive industry. We're in a competitive industry. Our commercials on TV show that, and we compete with other major hospitals in town and other major researchers across the country. So maybe we can learn from some of those. Also, I know that back when I've had some other guests come in, that people have said, "But they're an entrepreneur. We have a boss. They don't have a boss." they do their own thing, and that's not true. She has bankers that loan money. She has a husband that she has to work with.
A mean partner.
So, we all have somebody else that we kind of have to answer to, or at least work with or collaborate with. All right, so let's get started. You grew up in a small town in Kansas. Some of us did. Some of us grew up here or elsewhere. How did growing up in Kansas in a small town influence your career choice?
Well, I was fortunate enough to grow up in this wonderful little river town, Atchison, Kansas. And I think because it's such a small town, it's a town of 10,000. Kathy Glennon up there in the corner is also from Atchison. And, it was, and I was in high school in the 70s, early 70s, and, it was still easy as a kid to get jobs. I was lucky my parents had a retail store, a little clothing retail store. So, but growing up, we all had jobs. Today it's so much tougher because it's hard for adults to find jobs right now, let alone high school kids. So, but, everybody kind of knew you, and you knew everybody, so the expectations, if you were doing something wrong, which I did a lot, you were, you knew it. Your parents would find out. It was all, so I think that, but growing up, that, kids were kind of a part of the community there, and so everybody kind of looks out for them. So when you do good, everybody cheers you on. When you did bad, everybody would kind of like, and so it just kind of made you more accountable, I believe.
Okay, all right. You started as a gourmet food business. I don't know how many of you realize that, but her business really was gourmet food. How did you get into that and then evolve into the business you're in today?
Well, now you go to the bank and you want to start a business, or you have an idea and you need to have a business plan. And I think the one thing that has helped me is I've always been very flexible. And the idea that I opened it up was with gourmet cheeses and teas and biscuits. And this, you have to know, this has been about 30 years ago. So in a little town of 10,000 people, that wouldn't be a booming business. And so I am, making party trays during the holidays till 2 o'clock in the morning and selling them only for $15 and not getting any money out of the deal. You kind of either sink or swim, and you come out, you got to be on your feet and just say, okay, this isn't working, what can I do? So I gradually started adding other products to the mix and tried to diversify to be lots of things. And so it helped, it worked, and it helped the food end of it, and it complemented, like for gifts and things like that. So, you just kind of, and then I realized when my business was still struggling, and you have to know, I was 25 years old when I opened it. I was single. I needed to make my car payment out of it. I needed to do my insurance out of it. I needed to do, my rent out of it. So it made me kind of try to rethink what can I do? I need a bigger clientele, larger place to pull from. So that's when we started doing like shows in the city, like we do like a Junior League Holiday Mart. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but I was in the first one that was involved in that, and that was like 25 years ago. And so I set up a booth and everything, and I then had like linens and things like that, and had them at great prices, and that's kind of how it was a trend to get people to come up to our little town and go shopping.
Okay, all right. Pulling people from 100 miles away, which she does, because I think 95% of your
60 miles.
60?
Yeah, usually about it. The average person that walks in is driven about an hour and 10 minutes.
Okay, all right. That's, I think, an interesting connection with us because of all of the, pulling patients a number of years ago from the communities out south and up north that had hospitals right around the corner. Why should I go to KU? Well, people in Kansas City that would drive to Atchison to her store, what were some of the keys that you think helped drive the success of people wanting to get up there?
I think the environment was really important, the service, the prices, and the selection. We just had to make it, and we tried to make it more of a kind of a party atmosphere. And so it was, it was the kind of thing that you would get a girlfriend or two together and get in a car and visit all the way up, get your cup of coffee, visit all the way up, shop, and then get home before the kids are out of school. So it used to be like at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we'd restock from about 2:30 to 5 because no one was in our store. And then at 9 o'clock it would kind of start again because they dropped the kids off at school at 8.
I think the key word I heard that we could probably relate to is service and key things, because people aren't going to come back if they have a bad experience.
No, and and you're right, and service and just being friendly and just the whole atmosphere, the experience.
Experience, yeah. Okay.
Which always, needs to improve, and what we did 25 years ago doesn't necessarily work today, so we have to kind of keep evolving and changing. Yeah. And sometimes, that's pain in any business, I think that's sometimes painful to do, but it keeps it from being stale.
Right. Well, again, that's researching what's out there and trying to remain current. I think that's good. By the way, if any of you have questions along the way, stop us, and because this is supposed to be kind of a discussion interview, not just putting her on the hot seat and
I'm not on the hot seat.
And drilling her. Okay. I think. Let me think here. I don't know how much all of you know about her background, so some of my questions are going to be with a little bit of information about it before I ask the question. One of the things that she does today is have her name on a paint line, a line of interior paints, a line of home decorator products, a whole variety of them, some of which she designs, some of which she selects and then collaborates and they become hers. But in my mind, that's branding. Mm-hmm. And that's something that KU is trying to do as well. And so even if you whittle it down in our campus and our specialties and research, you need to brand your own style of work. How did you evolve into that?
Well, I think branding is very important. I imagine in your industry it's the same. It's true, but in retail, the industry has changed dramatically since I opened up my doors 30 years ago. And so in that, it's having your name out there and being recognized. So that's how we did it. And we did everything. And a lot of times, some of the things just accidentally happened. It wasn't because I was smart and thought, okay, we're going to do this. It just kind of fell in our lap. I was approached by a woman named Jean Lowe about doing books. And at first, I'd been approached by mail, and I just thought, oh, this is kind of a come on, like you get something, do you want to sell your business? So I just kind of threw it in the trash a couple of times. And then one day I get a phone call, and then we had a discussion. The next thing I know, I'm doing books, but it wasn't like I sought out to do it. Okay. And on our paint, we have a company in Atchison called Blish Mize, and they're a big hardware distributorship, and they very successful, and they do a lot of paint among other things. And it seems like we were always talking about paint colors to our customers in the store. And somebody from there said, why don't you develop a line of paint? So we partnered up with Davis Paint Company here in town, and they started developing a higher-end paint for us to do. And it's been really fun, and it was part of our branding. And then the Gerson Company in Kansas City out in Latha approached me about doing a line of products. So it's not that, that I was smart enough to think of any of this. It's just, it's taking an opportunity that comes to you, and then once you say yes or whatever, it's a lot of hard work that follows it. Like I thought, oh, doing a book, this is going to be so much fun. We're just going to go in, take pictures, all that. It's excruciatingly painful. I mean, I'd rather have there are days I'd rather have my fingernails pulled out than to do it. But once we get it done and it looks so pretty, it's like, oh, that was great. That wasn't so bad, So.
That's good. Yeah, I would think that taking the opportunities that come along, and I know that my career has certainly taken different paths just based on the opportunity, and I hadn't thought about that. What about this? And you're off and running.
A lot of times it's like an accident, or it's just a door that opened slightly that you're like, yes, I'm on board. And the one thing when you do these opportunities, you have to know that you're going to fail at some of them, and you can't be afraid to do that, or you won't do anything. Just like when we had the opportunity to open up our store in Kansas City. Well, I'd been in my little hometown in in 3 little buildings there, and it was pretty cozy and comfy, and we were doing business. But to go out there and break ground and buy your land and build your own building and do all that, after we got into it, my husband and I kind of looked at it and like, who did we think we are? This is scary. And, but now that we've done it and we're in our 4th year of it, we're getting a little more comfortable, and we're like, yes, that was the right thing to do. But again, it sounded like fun, and it was very painful.
Well, that is a growing pain. Along with that, and you talk about things, you're going to fail at some things along the way. Can you give us any examples of either obstacles that really were difficult to overcome, or anything that you thought, oh, I can do that, and then you realize, no, that's more than that pushes the limit too much, and I'm going to back off.
We have done some events that were probably too big for a store our size to do, and we've done some things like that, and we've gotten through them, and they've been great, but we knew we were too small to be doing them, so we didn't do them the next year. We kind of dust ourselves off and said, we got through that, but maybe this isn't our venue to do. We probably have had more of that than, but within reason, the one thing I know we're not capable of doing, and nor do I want to do, is we get lots of calls from places in like let's say Omaha or St. Louis or Tulsa or Oklahoma City to open up stores, or like a store in South Kansas City, and I know that this is it. This is as much as I'm capable of doing. That we will never be a franchise store or whatever, and that is just not within our powers.
I think understanding limitations. Who was it? The Clint Eastwood said, "Man's got to know his limitations." Was that the movie? Because yeah, that's good. Bear with me. I just lost my thought.
There's a question right there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In that line of franchising, doesn't that make your store a little bit more special because you're not a franchise? Because you can only come to Kansas City area to go to your store?
Well, that's exactly the way I feel. And at the time, my husband I look at it more with passion and the creation. I love, my husband says that I'm kind of like Barnum and Bailey Circus. I love to create and have people come in and go, oh, isn't this fun? And let's do this and whatever. That is what that's what pays me. That's my reward. But he was looking at the business side of it, and he kept thinking, you know what? We've got a good thing here. Let's franchise it and whatever. And you're exactly right. And what I like about what I'm doing now is it can be something different every day, and there's not a formula. And a lot of times we're doing things at the seat of our pants. We're just hanging on. We're just doing this, and I like that, and it energizes me. And I think if it was like what some of the bigger box stores, like I feel like Pottery Barn was really special when it first came out, and then there's so many of them now. Or something like that, and it's still a wonderful place, but you can pick up a catalog and you can order. And I don't think that would just not be something for us. I agree. I think it does make it more special. And we've even found, we've tried, one thing that we have not been successful in, I don't think, or as successful as I want to be. It works okay, but is our online shopping, because we think what we have is such an experience, and also it's a touch and feel. Like right now we have online, we put on all these pillows. Well, we customize these pillows. They're sewn, they're done in Kansas City, they're designed at the store. Well, my husband said, well, how come our pillows are so much more expensive than, let's say, Pottery Barn's pillows, these were like $120 and Pottery Barn's were like $79. And I said, well, it's the fill, it's this, it's that. And that's something that you just can't express on a page or on the screen of your website. And, I just feel like, and I know it's probably a lot of my age showing, but I think that's what it is, and that we're not all things to all people. And you have to kind of learn that. You try to have something for everybody. And we do have every price range. I mean, you can go in any of our stores and buy something wonderful for $5, or you can spend several $1,000s on a piece of a big, huge bookcase or an antique piece or something. So I think that one of the things that I had to learn was that we have our own little niche, and not everybody's going to like it, and that's okay, but we need to serve well to the people that it does attract, and that there's enough of those people to keep us in business. You know, you kind of have to be true to your heart on some things. You know, I mean, there's been some trends that have come through that we have not tapped into because it just, I was kind of like, really? You know, and or I can't sell what I don't love. You know, I have to love it, or it just, you know.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Was Rowan up there too? Okay, I'll let Benito go first. I can ask it while I'm walking up. We've had several leadership sessions on generational differences, and you're talking about shopping online. Do you see a certain age group that comes to your store and maybe millennial generation doesn't because they're very much into online shopping? And
well, you know what I have, and we were just talking about this earlier, what I have noticed is that at my Briarcliff location here in Kansas City, that I get a lot of the 30-year-olds there that I don't get up in Atchison anymore. And I think things have changed a lot. Like in my age group, when we were younger, it was nothing, you know, it was all about getting a couple girlfriends in a car and going on an adventure, driving a couple hours, doing this, seeing that, having that experience. but the 30-year-olds now, either they don't have that time, which, you know, no one ever has any time, but I think they're more apt to do in the city, and they're not as, I don't see them coming in groups with several girls. I see them coming in by themselves, or maybe one other girl, or maybe a boyfriend or a spouse. And they're fast, and they're out. And so it's kind of interesting. It's kind of going both ways. But I was talking to a man who has a shoe store, a discount shoe store, and he was telling me that he sees, you know, women standing there and seeing a pair of shoes and getting online and shopping it and see if they can get it cheaper elsewhere. And I think there is a lot of that. Our things are so different that it'd be a little bit harder to do.
Hi. I was curious, how did you start it up in terms of the funding? Where did it come from? And how did you get it? And how daunting is finding out that information of how you start a business? Where is the information? I mean, there's not just like a startabusiness101.com, or maybe there is, probably an app for that. But I was curious how you did it, and how did that process work, and did you have to do it all by yourself, or how did you find another person or people to work to actually make it happen? And I know that there's, you know, starting it, there's money, the startup, but maybe a loan. I was curious about that. Then other people and the time, then a land, a place to do it. Then also, there's a number of questions I have, obviously.
Yeah.
And then where? Well, I don't know. So and also, where are your products mainly built? Are they local? Are they international? Are they from everywhere? Just had those quick ones. I have a lot of other questions.
And I was worried no one was going to ask a question.
That's good. My job is done.
Well, first of all, you have to remember it was 30 years ago when I got my loan, and so it was a little easier then to get a loan. You know, now it is so much tougher. And when I started out, let me just give you a little bit of background. When I opened up my little shop in downtown Atchison, I was 25 years old. Now, you have to know it was a town of 10,000. Atchison, at one time, back in the 40s and 50s, was a booming town because there weren't shopping malls yet. And so it was supported by lots of farm communities. The town was larger. It was lots of traffic, and it was really going. When I came back to open up my little shop, it was more, there were more storefronts closed than were open on the mall. And it's kind of coming back to that right now. But there were a lot of offices, which kills a small town and downtown. And when I opened up my shop, it was something that should have never worked. it's not because I'm so smart. Part of it, a lot of it was kind of an accident, and then a lot of it was hard work. But what happened was, I opened up my shop on, I started my business with only $30,000. And 10 of it I had, 10 of it I borrowed from my dad. My dad put in 10 of it, and 10 of it I went and got it from my local bank, which of course my father had to co-sign the note. So within 3 or 4 years, I paid him back his $10,000 and paid off my note. But I kept going back to borrow money because it's very, for a retailer in my kind of business, you do most of your business in the fall through Christmas. And then January through the spring, it's pretty dead. So, so now if you're wanting to go and borrow money, like I had 2 women in my store yesterday, a young gal, and well, they're both young, but one very young, probably right out of college, and one that was probably in her early 40s. And they were on their way. They were from another town. They were flying to Denver to look at a franchise that the 40-year-old was going to set up the 27-year-old in business. She thought it was a great idea. They were going to go and they were going to talk to him. They were going to see how it was. So this little gal is getting started because she had somebody who thinks it's a great idea and believes in her. And there's just different places where the money comes from, but it is the toughest thing right now because so many banks have been burnt by so many ideas. Now, you have to know that I was told that there was no way that this was going to work, except for I had a father who, if you would look up in the dictionary, entrepreneur, his picture should be right next to it because he believed, he decided if someone had a great idea and they were passionate about it, they could make it work. And he'd been an entrepreneur. He'd been in the clothing business. And he had had a man who'd been his partner for years, and then they split up their partnership, who believed in my dad, and he called my dad Beaver because my dad did all the work and he had the money, and they had opened up about 3 clothing stores, and when they dissolved their partnership, when they got down to what they couldn't divide, they flipped a coin. So it was and they talked to each other every day until the day they died. So, there's just so many different places to look, but it's definitely hard. It is not easy. But anyway, that's how it worked for me. And then, so for years, and especially being female and being young, I couldn't go to the bank and borrow the money without my father co-signing it. And I had been in business for about 8 years, and my husband, I got married, and I was told that either my husband or my father needed to co-sign the note, and my husband's like going, that's crazy. You need to go march and you need to go find another bank, which I did. And because I had enough history to prove that I paid these off. What happened there is my first year, I did $27,000 worth of business. Probably 23 years later, my little shops there did over $6 million worth of business. So that was a huge turnaround. Now, when you say you do $6 million worth of business, that doesn't make you wealthy because, it's just like money hemorrhaging all over the place going out because you've got so many expenses. But it's kind of proof that it could be done in a little town where it shouldn't have worked. But again, it was just all those little accidents that I ran into that I took advantage of that I made work. And there's trade-offs. Right now, I'm trying, this was my new thing this year, is trying to take a day off. Since I opened up the Briarcliff store, I've worked and we're in our 4th year, I've worked 7 days a week. But my husband said, someone will say to my husband, oh, she's just working too much. And he said, if she was a golf pro and on her day off she was playing golf, would you feel sorry for her? And they'd say no. And he goes, precisely, she's doing what she wants to do. He said, no one's holding a gun to her to do it. But I will say also it always goes a lot smoother when you can, if there's a problem, you can take care of it right then. So I don't know if I'm answering all those questions, but it's if you're wanting to do something, you've got to be passionate about it, you've got to love it, and you've got to be willing to put everything on the line to do that. I mean, there were times like I would go to market, and my joke was I'd go to market and I'd spend money I hadn't even borrowed yet. So, I would do these, my banker, no wonder they wanted my dad to co-sign. But, I would go and I would just think, this is it, and I would go and I'd think, I need to do this. And, a couple times I got stubbed my toe on it. It didn't work. But we would go and we'd do these shows, and I just put everything on the line to try to get people to come to the shop. And, I would be driving a truck, a large cargo truck, up to Omaha, Nebraska with another girlfriend, and we'd be setting up our booth, and we'd have a good day, and we'd sell everything out of our truck. And I can remember this happened on more than one occasion, that in the middle of the night I was driving that truck back to Atchison to reload so we'd have stuff to sell the next day at that show, because I'd spent $6,000 or $7,000 on a booth, and I needed to make it work, and and it was working. So and my products made. Well, you know how they're. My husband says I'm part of the problem, that I have a lot of products made out of the country, but what happens is, let's say I have a lot of it's made in Vietnam, China, like our porcelains and things like that. I can have two containers, let's say two really pretty pots to put a plant in, and I can have two of those, and one can be made locally, handmade, and it would be a couple $100 or $150, and I can have one that looks just like it, that may have been copied off of an expensive piece, that is $8. Well, that consumer is probably going to go for the $8 one. I can order 144 of those. I can only order one and say a prayer on that one. So I'm kind of being apologetic about it, but I feel like I have to be. Because I wish it was different. But right now, and it's just kind of what the industry is, like fabrics. Like I go to North Carolina. I just got back a couple weeks ago from having the big furniture show at High Point. Well, it used to be all down there was surrounded by fabric mills. Well, they have all these fabric mills have closed, and it's all being made in China and India and Vietnam. But it's starting to come, we're seeing, and that kind of went on about 10, 15 years ago, we're kind of seeing some mills opening back up because there are becoming problems about getting it over from overseas. And I think what's going to happen is it's going to eventually move back here, and there'll be new technology to do it. But because they're now having their own set of problems, kind of like what we were, the pay is being raised to being a decent salary for people, and it's becoming Americanized. And so I feel like eventually it'll all come back, but it probably won't come back for 20 years entirely.
Hi. Oh.
Okay, well, what I've learned about working with other people and management and leadership, in case someone couldn't hear, is I never ask anybody to do anything I'm not willing to do. And so sometimes when we come in, it's about getting the store clean and whatever. And I've also learned what probably one of the best things for me that I've learned is because we have 100 employees, not all full-time, but throughout the 3 stores, and we have warehouses, we have truck drivers, we have 2 trucks, and we have 4 truck drivers. What I've learned is when you fill a spot for somebody and it's not working out, a lot of times what I try to do is find another niche. And it's been really interesting. I have some people that I value the most in my operation have started out wearing a different hat, and it didn't work. And I remember one time, this is just an example, she's retired now, but years ago, I had a gal who we needed some more help on our registers. And I had a gal, and she was an art teacher, and she came in, and she taught, and she said, I'm tired of teaching. my husband said I can quit. I just need to make my car payment. She says, do you have any openings? And I said, well, I need somebody on the register 5 days a week. And she goes, great. So she came in and she worked on my register for a couple days, or for a day. And on the second day she's working on it, my husband comes to me and he said, get her off the register. They are so screwed up, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, oh, she's so nice. And so I said, do you mind? I said, I'm going to have you do something else. So I take her in the back, and we have these different rooms. This is at the Atchison store. And I said, will you just kind of fix this room up? It's a mess. Will you just kind of clean it up and just arrange it and whatever? Well, we were real busy that day, and it was it's kind of the dead end of our Atchison store, of the main store. So I'm busy all day waiting on people and doing my little thing. And about 3 o'clock, I go back there, and it takes my breath away. It's beautiful. And I think to myself, you are an idiot. She's an art teacher. You know, I mean, the vignettes were beautiful, and she rehung the artwork and all that. And so that's what she did from there on. And I cannot tell you, you'd be surprised how many times that's happened in the Nell Hills family of workers, that's happened. And so some of my most talented people have been hired for other things.
Oh, hi. So I can tell that you're committed to preserving the shopping experience, but also preserving the quality of small town America. How do you invest to make sure that there are other entrepreneurs like yourself who can keep both of these things going?
You know, that is such a great question, because right now we're dealing with that. There was kind of a committee, self-appointed committee formed that I was asked to be on, and we just had our second meeting Monday night about, like, for instance, downtown Atchison. And in fact, is when I was driving into work today, because it takes me about 15 minutes to drive to work, I was thinking about that. And we just had a young man that opened up a restaurant. And before he opened it up, this is so telling, everybody said, gosh, what's wrong with him? That's never going to work in Atchison. And it has worked. And I remember kind of thinking, that's the same way my father's friends going, she shouldn't be opening up a little gourmet shop, which they were probably right. But, that, you know, this is never going to work. You know, she grew up in the clothing business. That's what she knows. This is what she should be doing. Anyway, but this guy is on this committee. And to listen to him, I'm just thinking, oh, that's exactly how I was 25 or 30 years old. And he's a guy who graduated from Benedictine College. He had opened up a restaurant in Aggieville. It's kind of more of a casual dining, kind of sports bar. And then he opened up in Atchison, and he's doing great. And as I'm thinking, is we just need to get that young energy, because, you know, like, I'm 56 years old. You know, I'm struggling to try to get a day off during the week, because I'm at Briarcliff store on Saturdays, Sundays. You know, if I'm not at Briarcliff store, I'm at the Atchison store. So I'm thinking, you know, it's not going to be me. I'm not opening up another location there. It needs to be that young energy. And but we need to figure out a way to, maybe there's so many people at our local college who love Atchison, who want to stay in Atchison. We need to figure out a way, an opportunity for these people to open up business and to afford to open up businesses. Because you think, oh, it'd be so inexpensive to buy a building there or anything. Well, it's really not. It should be, but it's not. Our taxes are high. You know, it's everything that you all fight in the city. And so that's what we're kind of struggling with. So we don't know the answer, but it needs to be somebody who's commitment, who's going to stay there and raise their family there. But you know, it's not going to be somebody my age, you know. But maybe somebody my age can back them up, can be that person, or can mentor them. You know, I would love to be a mentor to somebody doing that.
Did you have mentors along the way of any kind or in any?
You know, my parents were such huge mentors. I had my parents. You know, I had the advantage growing up in retail. I kind of knew what I was getting into, and because my parents were far in debt, there was a mall put in downtown Atchison in the 60s, and they were one of the first to build a building there. And dinner conversation, I was youngest of 3, and dinner conversation was about how they were going to get their loan payment done, how they were going to do this or do that. And so I kind of grew up in it, and I loved it, and I was fascinated by it. My 2 older siblings were not at all. They kind of ran from it. But I loved it. And so, and I was lucky enough I had a father who took care of my books. In fact, as he used to say, he worried more about my books than he did his own. And then one day he kind of said, I'm through with you. You don't take any of my advice. You don't do what I say. You just go and you spend money you don't have. So, you need to go hire a bookkeeper. Let it be their problem, which I did, I one time, this was so funny, one time I had this nun up there who's really a great gal, but she's a little bit of a smart aleck. She's really fun. And she said to me, she said, you were terrible in math. She said, how did you ever get your business going? And I looked at her and I said, you never told me I could hire it done. So anyway, I think you have to find your little niche. And, my niche is, what I love is, and that was another thing on my growing pains. I remember I was talking to this guy who was in the tire business down in the bottoms here. And he was very, very successful. And he self-started and, he sold vehicles for a while and saved up enough money and opened up it was not a tire business, a battery business, a battery business. And I said, how did you get it? How did you do this? And he said, I learned to delegate. And when he told me that was like a light bulb, because I thought, and I'm still very young in my business, but I thought nobody could vacuum my store as well as I could. Nobody could wrap a present as well as I could. All these things. So I had to learn that I had to let go, and I had to find what my thing was. And my thing was being with people. I love for someone to come in and say, I got this problem, this is not working out. And I love to solve that problem. That, we're not solving any world crisis, but we're doing little decorating, dilemmas. But what I do think is, with that said, I think your environment that you raise your children in, or that you walk into after working so hard every day, that it feeds you. And it's got to be a interesting and an attractive environment. And what may be attractive to you may not be to somebody else, but it's all real important. It kind of feeds you. It's kind of like preparing a lovely meal, and not eating fast food. There's a difference. And so I do think it's important in your life, but not as important as a lot of other things, probably.
Yes. Oh.
Well, I probably only look out at the following year. I'm not like what you probably are doing, where you'd have to be 2 years ahead. I just have to be a year ahead. So and sometimes not even a year ahead. Like in January, I did everything that we're going to do for the holidays. I ordered all that, so that for Christmas. But there's like for colors, for instance. Like if you go into a high-end department store and you go into the junior section, that shows you the colors. The young girls section, it shows you, like they were showing a lot of color last year. Right now, people are starving for bright colors. We're selling lots of, and they might not do this on their sofa, but they might do it on pillows on their sofa, or they might do it in artwork, but we're doing like the apple greens and the sapphire blues and the marigold yellows and the corals and all that. Well, 3 or 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, someone will have looked at me and said, you're crazy. And, you have to be really careful, because sometimes you can get ahead of the trends. In retail, there's a story that my parents, when turtlenecks came out, my parents in a little store, they bought all these turtlenecks. Well, nobody that winter bought one turtleneck from them, and that summer they had them on the sidewalk sale for $2 each. Well, the following fall, they couldn't get their hands on enough of them. So it's kind of about not only the trends, but your timing and placement. And like starting January 1st, we did lots of neutral upholsteries. Now there's all this outdoor fabric that you're putting on indoors, which looks great, so it makes it livable. And we put all these bright colored fabrics together with it on pillows and accessories and things. And I just got back from High Point, which is a really good place to study trends and things, and it was all about color there, so it made me feel really good, because I felt like, okay, we're right on track. Because sometimes you hate to go to one of those markets and go, we should have been doing this the last couple of months. And but it's Pinterest, it's online looking around, it's all the magazines are still out there, House Beautiful, Elle Decor, all that, and it's markets, and it's also studying fashion, because fashion, to me, fashion colors come out on clothing before they come out on your upholstery. So, but what I say to a lot of my customers, I think you have to be really true to yourself. It's real easy to get caught up in all that, but if you're kind of like a fall color gal, like with, or guy with, you like more the browns and the rusts and all that, you can do those beautifully and still be very, very much on task in any color scheme, So I think it's and I always think too that somebody, what colors they wear kind of says a lot about what they might or should have in their home.
I was talking to a faculty member the other day that had just been promoted, and I said to the individual, what are you going to do next? And his answer was, I don't know. I'm involved with working with so many different people, and I've got about 30 different projects going, and I really don't know what I'm going to do next. It sounds like, in a way, you kind of figured that out when you said, we're going to expand to Kansas City, and then you said, but we're not going to go into, roll out a chain. What are you going to do next?
You know what, we're going to start shooting for another book. There goes the fingernails. We're going to start shooting for another book this summer that won't come out for another year. And then, but really what I truly am focusing on is just making what we have better. I just want to make it better. We try to keep the Atchison stores a completely different experience than the Kansas City store. And the Kansas City store, it's kind of like a new house. We're in our 4th year. And it's kind of like when you move into a new house. It's wonderful and it's nice and it's pristine, but you don't have your mojo going on in it yet. And now I feel like we're there we're kind of where we want to be in the Kansas City store, and I just want to keep getting it better. And same way with the stores in Atchison. I just feel like, when we did our expansion, we ignored those for a little bit, and probably, but now they're in full swing, and you just kind of.
So you're perfecting where you are.
Very much, but but in retail, it's like every season you have to start over. It's like a new play or whatever. You have to start over. So, but it keeps it keeps it interesting.
I think with a lot of the leaders that we've brought in this series, one thing that I have seen that's been consistent with some of the most successful people that have come through is one characteristic in their personality and where they reach in this peak that they reach in their career. So, tell us about Amethyst Place.
Oh, Amethyst Place is this really special house that takes in women that have been in the court system, that have not, their children have been living apart from them, and it's kind of their last chance to live with their children, and they're all women that have had some kind of addiction. And so, and it's just, it's a great place. It's over on Troost, and it's, we're just real excited we're all about the home, so we thought this was a really neat cause for us, for Nell Hills to be involved in and make a little bit of a difference. So we help go in and set up apartments and furniture, and a lot of the people are involved. We're just a small fraction. There's so many people involved. And in fact, we're going to start kind of a new deal we're going to have, and it'll be up on our face or on our website pretty soon. We're going to have a truck one Saturday a month parked outside of Nell Hills in Kansas City, and any gently used furniture, accessories, anything that you want to get rid of, it can go into their warehouse, and then people like different committees or crew or whatever goes in and decorates the place and sets it up. We set one up that was so fun. It was a mother with 2 little boys and a daughter, and we just did it out of the Nell Hills family. And when we left that place, I thought I would love to sleep in her bedroom. I mean, it was beautiful. And then in the little girls' room, somebody had a little antique vanity that they donated that we put in. We fixed them all up, and bought some new things. Like a coffee pot and a toaster and just some essentials. But it's just that, again, it's that environment. So if it's an environment the mother could be proud of, she can bring her children in there. And then they get to live there. If they follow the rules, they live there for a year. And then after they graduate from that, they move into another apartment that they can live in. But there's another, there's all these veins to this. And another one is that, there's a group that helps them with their finances because they don't know anything about financing. Some of these women have lived on the street. And then another one on education. I'm not sure how many, but they have quite a few enrolled in college. They've helped them get their GED. Now they're enrolled in college. I mean, their success rate is wonderful. And what's kind of happening, I just met with some of the people from Amethyst Place earlier in the week, and what's happening is there's more houses and organizations. So there's Catherine's Place. There's so many different places to go to help out. But it's really kind of fun. And we'll do a promotion where we'll give you $500 off your sofa if you donate your gently used sofa. And there's about half of them we have to take to the dump because they're not gently used, and then the other half that they can use. But it's just a real feel good, and you're welcome to tour the place anytime. Get on their website; they have a great website. But it's really come a long way. So we kind of got involved with it for a couple years ago, and the only reason why we found out about it is a girl that was helping us on Sundays was very involved in it, and everybody started bringing her. It's not more about clothing, but more about nice sheets and towels and things like that that they could use there. And her garage was kind of their warehouse, and now they've got somebody's donated a warehouse, and so they're really moving along. So it's just a real feel-good place. So get on your website and look at it. But we love it, and there's so many good places like that. It's just kind of fun. So we try to do different things to give back to the community because the community is obviously really good to us, and so.
Amethyst Place is over on Troost and 22nd, 27th, somewhere in that neighborhood. So the philanthropy gene, I think, lives and thrives in a lot of very, very successful individuals that we've brought into the series. And when I read that online about your involvement, I thought, that's why she's successful. She's giving back.
Well, we just felt like that, we are solicited 2 or 3 times a day almost for different organizations. And I thought, so we picked out 3 or 4 organizations that we could really make a difference in, and we just thought, okay, the next couple of years, this is what we're going to concentrate on and do it well instead of doing a little bit at all these other places.
You have a lot of employees that help with that too, right?
Well, it's very much, it's just a family of people that do it.
Yeah. Great. Are there any other questions? Any other things you'd like to ask? Or yes? Mm-hmm.
Well, in Atchison, a lot of the people that are there have been with me for 13 years. I have one coworker that's been there 22 years. So they sometimes have better ideas most of the time probably than I do. But you know what? It's just I try to check in, and it's a juggling act, and there's no perfect answer to it. It's not always the way you want. Like you might walk in at night and you think, oh, is that like that all day? But it's just my philosophy is everybody's doing the best they can, and nothing's perfect. But I really have great people. I mean, I've my idea, I think, to be successful is you surround yourself with people who are smarter than you are. And I have a lot of people that know a lot more than I do that I work with, and it makes it all work. And again, there's a variety of talents and a variety of input, and all of it's absorbed in. I mean, we're small enough that we can do that, and it works. And so, for some reason, it's just really worked. And because, especially, I'm probably at the Briarcliff store more, and that was kind of harder because we were hiring a lot of people I didn't know. We're up in Atchison, you've grown up with most of these people, or their cousin or whatever. But, and also those people have been there for so long that they're a familiar face, so our customers are comfortable with, Joe, who usually greets you at the front door of our main store up there. They know them at Briarcliff, Janet, Ethel's up at Garrity's. They've all been there for a long time. And so I think that helps a lot. And, the phone,
Just in closing, a lot of leadership management issues today. If you would put those in your evaluations and let us know how this benefits you in your everyday activities, it would be very helpful as we look forward to maybe an 11th year of doing the leadership series. And
Or changing
Or
it.
changing. What changes?
You know, if you'd like to see us go a different path, you know, what can we create in a series? This one has all been about leadership and bringing in people that we can learn from. I mean, we could continue that, but what else could we do to service the whole campus? That's what this series has touched.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks
Thanks
both.
for having me. Thank you. Oh, it was fun.